सिंगारतन्मन्दिरमार्जनादौ श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना सिंगारतन्मन्दिरमार्जनादौ युक्तश्च भक्तांश्च निजुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् युक्तश्च भक्तांश्च निजुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् संसारदावानलनिरलोक प्राणाय कारुण्य घनाघनत्यं प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणार्णवश्च वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् चतुर्विधासी भगवत्प्रसाद सर्वान्नचित्तं हरिभक्तसङ्घान् चतुर्विधासी भगवत्प्रसाद सर्वान्नचित्तं हरिभक्तसङ्घान् तृप्तैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधवयरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नां श्रीराधिका माधवयरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नां प्रतीक्षण स्वादनलोपश्च प्रतीक्षण स्वादनलोपश्च वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् संसारदावानलनिरलोक प्राणाय कारुण्य घनाघनत्यं प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणार्णवश्च वन्दे गुरश्रीचरणरविन्दम् कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to Yashodanandana Prabhu, who's in Twain Art. I know you won't like that, but I always like to see him on the class. Makes a better experience for all of us, because association with devotees is one of the fundamental principles of spiritual advancement. And that's based on Guru Shastra Sadhu. The spiritual master should be bona fide, yes. And we see that people that do not have the qualifications of a bona fide guru, if they accept disciples, Yashodanandana Prabhu, they may get bad karma, unfortunately. And we see that some of our godbrothers are now become afflicted with serious mental problems. They're distressed. They're having trouble. Because we were reading in the Easy Journey to Other Planets book that we're planning to produce for everyone, that Prabhupada quotes this point, that you shouldn't have many disciples. It's also a mistake. And because you have to accept their karma. Can you imagine that? We're already having problems with our own karma, our own difficulty. And then all of a sudden you decide, well, now I'm some kind of special human, and I can take on the karma of others. So very difficult for such a person to make that decision and live with it, because there are reactions to everything. Yes. And the intricacies of action are very complicated. I was asked by a friend this morning, what happened to Gopal, at the time of his death? Interesting question. What happened to him? And my answer was, I don't know. Because the intricacies of action and reaction are very complicated. We do know that we were there in Mexico to try to help him as much as we could to remember Krishna. Yes, that's the responsibility of the devotee, is to share transcendental knowledge, because there are two worlds. Yes, there are. The one is the material world, and the other is the spiritual world, although most people have no idea that there is a spiritual world. No idea. Why? Because this is the Kali Yuga, where people live a short duration of life. They have poor memories. They're lazy. They're misguided. Unfortunate. And that's all pervasive. And as a result, they have very little knowledge of spiritual life. They know how to run a phone. Oh, yeah. They know how to handle technology. Oh, yes, they do. In fact, this revolution of technology, this technology revolution based on AI, has captivated the human society. And it's think about the meaning of it. It's artificial intelligence. It's not real. It's artificial. It's pretend. And people are not relying on their own intelligence to understand the purpose of life. They go to technology to ask, well, I should do this or do that. But will it answer the question, what is the purpose of life for you? No, it won't. You have to answer that yourself. And you have to take up the process of devotional service according to good association. Yes. And that is the function of the devotees, to become good devotees and to share this knowledge with other people, not AI. A lot of people ask me, well, ask it questions. So I do. It's on my Facebook Messenger. You can go to AI there, use that one. But they can't give you an answer. They can't, because it's not a real thing. They give you answers, okay, we know that, but the purpose of life is not an answer they're going to give. They're not going to say, oh, you should be a devotee of Hare Krishna, or you should be a Christian, or you should be a Jew, or you should be this or that. It won't tell you that. It'll suggest these are the different groups, but it can't give you the final conclusion, which we can. Why? Because Krishna tells us that you become my devotee, you worship me, you render service unto me. And in this way you can come to me. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. That is real intelligence. This is old technology. And it's the truth. New technology is a mechanism created by Kali Yuga. Hey, Michael Dillon? It's Kali Yuga, the iron age of quarrel and hypocrisy. And it goes on everywhere. People are hypocritical and they don't understand the mind. They don't understand the intelligence, and they don't understand false ego because they're not interested. No, you have to be sincere. You have to be serious. Prabhupada would tell us this. If you want to be a devotee of Krishna, you have to be serious about taking up the process. It's a discipline given by the spiritual master and his teachers, the disciplic succession. And you have to take to this process and rise above the animal form of life. That's what it is. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. What are most people interested in every day? Let's go to McDonald's. Like the president. Oh, we're going to go to McDonald's. The guy's super intelligent, super brilliant. He's amazing. But what does he eat? McDonald's hamburgers. That's his call to action. Let's go to McDonald's. Or he has it brought to him. Cuckoo. Not very intelligent. You eat that garbage. You kill animals. Yeah, and guess what? According to the laws of karma, Mother Rochisha, if a person is the leader of a country, he has to accept 1/6 of the karma of all the citizens. Can you imagine what is going to happen at the time of death for this person? So I was saying, people were asking me this morning, well, what happened to Paul? Well, he drank Ganges water. He heard the holy names. We chanted the Nrsimha prayers because there is a subtle world beyond the material body, which is bile, mucus, stool, urine, all kinds of odors. And then the mind always disturbed, as we know, always disturbed. People think they aren't, but they are. And they're confused, so much doubt. Why am I here? Where am I going? What will happen to me at the time of death? Do you have those answers, everyone? Do you? No, you don't. All you have is an opportunity to purify yourself, elevate yourself out of the animal status of life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And this goes on, and everybody accepts it as normal. And these people are brainwashed, completely brainwashed. We have a bunch of zombies walking on the streets. They have no clue. It was quite cultural shock when I came back. When I came back from Mexico the other day on the plane, when I got off the plane, it was like, because there it's a different pace. It's like India. You go to India, it's a different pace and a different lifestyle. But also there, but seeing the way people are here, they're completely entangled in material efforts, in material success. That's what they're trying to do. I want to be successful. I want to become this or that. And they're focused on that 100%, and they have no knowledge of self-realization. And it's apparent. You see it. And they're confused. They're having trouble. They're in trouble. They're financially struggling. They're trying to become somebody. And in this way, the material world goes on. And we are very fortunate because by Prabhupada's grace, we have an understanding that there is a spiritual world. Yes, there is. That God exists in detail, by the way. Not like in Christianity, they just show God as sitting in a chair behind a desk with no face. There is no personality. There's just appreciation that there's a higher power. But here we have in the Vedic scriptures, and today we're going to read from the Bhagavad Gita, detailed information about the mechanics of the world given by Krishna himself. He's telling us the mind is always disturbed, restless. People are struggling to find happiness. Prabhupada tells us that. But they're not happy because they don't have knowledge. So the conclusion is, when you have knowledge, when you have good association, when you have a discipline, you have hope that you can become elevated in spiritual life, and you have a hope that at the time of death, you can go back to the spiritual world, which is a reality that is hidden by most people because they are living the life of confusion, Vijaya Pandit, the life of an animal, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So we want to thank everyone for being here today for our program. Yes, we appreciate it so much. And it's being recorded on YouTube as well. So we have an audience there. And it's also being saved on our Hare Krishna Society YouTube page for future reference for people. And in this way, the sound vibration of truth is emanating in a small way through these facilities. And we're very happy that all of you are with us to be a part of the program. And we're going to move forward with the next section. And I wanted to remind everybody that we do, and some people are sending me notices of appreciation that we're doing a review of the unauthorized biography of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the unauthorized biography of him, a review of the mistakes that were made in this biography that have confused many people who have read them and not really understood Prabhupada's position as the transcendental representative of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami and of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very confused because there has been a great misinformation campaign launched by our godbrothers. And it's been effective. There are hundreds of thousands of people following their group. I just saw, and I'll end up, I just got something sent to me, Yashodanandana Prabhu, about the brand name ISKCON and how the ISKCON people in India, more specifically, are suing anybody that uses that brand name. So lawsuits are there, and the truth of the matter is they don't understand Prabhupada's teachings. They've changed everything, and this is Very unfortunate. And it's contaminated the message of Lord Chaitanya by the personal ambition of a few. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to the Sankirtan movement. We're going to move forward with the chanting of Jaya Radha Madhava. This was a bhajan that Prabhupada said. Glorious, by the way. It was so wonderful to see him in Mayapur. Eh? Yashodanandana, we used to assemble there. There were hundreds of devotees from all around the world, and then Prabhupada would come down and give the Bhagavatam class. It was just tremendous. We're going to chant, we're going to hear him chant, and then we'll move forward with the morning discussion and reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, unchanged and unedited. All glories to the Sankirtan movement.
Singh. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Yamuna Tira सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गो गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the Assembly Lord. All glories to the Assembly. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskrityam. Narayanam namaskrityam. Naram chaiva narottamam. Naram chaiva narottamam. Devim saraswatim vyasam. Devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet. Tato jayam mudirayet. One should utter the means of conquest, Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead, Narayana, 2, to the Naranarayana Rishi, who is the supremmost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, from Srimad Bhagavatam 1-4. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. As everyone on this program knows, but some outside of this program may not know, this reading is being conducted on the basis of the original 1972 non-edited, non-interpolated, and non-adulterated version, the Macmillan edition of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. All synonyms, translations, and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. As we do every week, we will be reciting a few Sanskrit verses which were directly and personally introduced by Srila Prabhupada himself in 1966 in February, when he commenced his program of lecturing on Bhagavad Gita. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakanvitam Scha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunath Dasa and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, Srivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates Sri Lalita and Vishaka. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Oh, my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavana. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and were full of compassion for the fallen souls. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We will proceed with our verse. Today we are reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 13, text number 4. Tat kshetram yachaya drikcha yadvikari yataschayat sachayu yat prabhavascha tat samasena meshrunu. Tat, that. Kshetram, field of activities. Yat, as. Cha, also. Yadrik, as it is. Cha, also. Yat, what is. Vikari, changes. Yataha, from which. Cha, also. Yat, one. Sa, he. Cha, also. Ya, one. Yat, which. Prabhavaha cha, influence also. Tat, that. Samasena, in detail. Me, from me. Shrunu, understand. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Now, please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what its influences are. Purport from His Divine Grace. The Lord is describing the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities in their constitutional positions. One has to know how this body is constituted, the materials of which this body is made, under whose control this body is working, how the changes are taking place, wherefrom the changes are coming, what the causes are, what the reasons are, what the ultimate goal of the individual is, and what the actual form of the individual soul is. One should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the super soul, the different influences, their potentials, etc. One just has to understand this Bhagavad Gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And all this will be clarified. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every body and individual soul to be the jiva. This is something like equalizing the potent and the impotent. Text number 5. Rishibir bahuda gitam shandobhir vivideh pritak brahmasutra padescheva etumadbhir vinishchitaihi rishibihi. But the wise sages, bahuda, in many ways, Gitam, describe, Chandobihi, Vedic hymns, Vividaihi, in various, Pritak, variously, Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta, Padaihi, aphorism, Cha, also, Eva, certainly, Etumadbihi, with cause and effect, Vinishchitaihi, ascertain. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings, especially in the Vedanta Sutra, and is presented with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and the supersoul by referring to scriptures, the Vedanta, which are accepted as authority. First, he says this is according to different sages. As far as the sages are concerned, besides himself, Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage. And in the Vedanta Sutra, duality is perfectly explained. And Vyasadev's father, Parashara, was also a great sage, and he writes in his books of religiosity, Aham Tvam Chatat Atanye, we, you, I, and various other living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. Now we are fallen into the ways of the three modes of material nature, according to our different karma. As such, some are on higher levels and some are in lower nature. The higher and lower natures exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the supersoul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature and is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between the soul, the supersoul, and the body is made, especially in the Katha Upanishad. There is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as Annamaya, by which one depends simply upon food for existence. This is a materialistic realization of the Supreme. Then there is Pranamaya. This means that after realizing the Supreme Absolute Truth in foodstuff, one can realize the Absolute Truth in the living symptoms of life forms. In Jnanamaya, the living symptom develops due to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Then there is Brahman realization and the realization called Vijnanamaya, by which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. The next and supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of the all-blissful nature. Thus, there are 5 stages of Brahman realization, which is called Brahmapucham. Out of these first 3, Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya, involve the fields of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, which is called Anandamaya. In the Vedanta Sutra, also the Supreme is called Anandamayobhyasat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy, and to enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, and Annamaya. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and different from him is the Anandamaya. That means that if the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Annamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is the real picture of the Supreme Lord as supreme knower of the field, the living entity, as subordinate knower and the nature of the field of activities. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shugurave Namaha. Bhagavad Vandanam Kadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadati Visheshataham Adadanastrinam Danteridam Yachi Punaha Punaha Srimadrupa Padam Bhoja Dhulisyam Janmana Janmani Amsho Bhagavatosmyaham Sadadasu asmi saravata tat kripa pikshako nityam tat preshta sadkaromisvam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. In 1993 in Badger, California, I had the good fortune of a visit from Brahmananda Maharaj and Gargumuni Maharaj. They were traveling around to visit different Prabhupada disciples and devotees and trying to sell various publications from the Bhaktivedanta archives. Sets of Prabhupada's lectures, sets of Prabhupada's conversations, different translations in English of very important Vaishnava literatures. So he stayed at our place for a few days. And as part of this discussion, he told me a very interesting story in connection to what we're discussing today. The difference between the soul and the super soul. He went to Srila Prabhupada one time and asked Srila Prabhupada, it seemed to be very difficult in this world to be humble. How can we become humble? And Srila Prabhupada explained to him, it's actually very simple. First, you have to understand what you are and who you are. What you really are is 1/10,000th a tip of a hair. And Prabhupada explains how in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 2, there's a description that if you cut the tip of a hair to 100 pieces, then again, you come up to 1/10,000th a tip of a hair. He says, that's what you really are. If you understand this, there's no cause to be puffed up and to have any false ego. And this is the power and the potency of the pure devotee. He can explain the scriptures. He can explain everything very clearly. Now we can see in his purports the explanation of Srila Prabhupada, how he break down. This is called technically in Sanskrit, Sankhya. When you look at the last verse that we read, how Srila Prabhupada explains every single thing, like text number 4 and 5. In text number 4, Prabhupada explained, one has to know how this body is constituted, the materials of which this body is made, under whose control this body is working, how the changes are taking place, where from the changes are coming, what the causes are, what the reasons are, what the ultimate goal of the individual is, and what the actual form of the individual soul is. Now, these are very important points. And Srila Prabhupada used to often explain that the Vedic literatures, the Bhagavad Gita, explains everything in great detail. Now, thanks to you, very Prabhu, Neil Sharma Prabhu, again, I was referring to this verse, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 17, Avinashi tutat viddi, yena sarvam idam tatam, vinasham avyayasyasya, na kaschit kartum harhati. Know that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Now, this is very important because in Sanskrit, in the first line, it says Avinashi. The word Avinashi in Sanskrit, that cannot be destroyed. That cannot perish. Proper translated as imperishable. In a purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, this verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body in part or as a whole. This spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptom of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of the hair point in size, just what we were referring to in a discussion between Brahmananda Swami and Srila Prabhupada. The Shvetasvatara Upanishad confirms this. Balagra shatabhagasya shatada kalpitasya cha bhagu jivaha sabignayaha sachanantyaya kalpate. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again, each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. Shvetasvara Upanishad 5:9. Similarly, in the Bhagavatam, the same version is stated. Keshagra shatabhagasya shatam sha sadrishatmakaha jiva sukshma swarupoyam sankyatito hichit kanaha. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as 1/10,000th of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of spirit soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms, and such atoms are innumerable. This very small spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body, and the influence of such a spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spreads throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body, and this consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means of material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul. In the Mundaka Upanishad, the measurement of the atomic soul is further explained. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada keeps explaining the science of the soul. We also see in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita how Lord Krishna himself very nicely explains the different elements of the material body. This is in the beginning, text number 4 and 5. Lord Krishna explains in the chapter 7, text number 4. Bhumirapona lo vayuhu kammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme binna prakriti rashtada. Earth, water, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, all together, these 8 comprise my separated material energies. Now, this is a very good explanation of the difference between the soul and the super soul, because in the next text, Lord Krishna goes on, besides this inferior nature, O mighty arm Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mind, which are all living entities which are struggling with material nature and are sustaining this universe. So we see from the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic literatures how there is great details involved in understanding the difference between the body and the soul. What is the soul? What are the various material elements? What is that superior nature? Why are we in this situation of suffering? We have often pointed out from the Bhagavad Gita itself, Karanam guna sangasya sarasat yoni janmasu. Why do we see so many different conditions in the living entities, especially with human beings? We see in society some people are very intelligent, genius-like. Some people are somewhat intelligent, and some people are dumb as a stone. They're not very intelligent. Some people are very beautiful. Some people are somewhat ordinary, and some people are not very ordinary, they're ugly. Why doesn't everybody look beautiful? Why is not everybody born as a genius? Why? Why are there so many different varieties? There's a conversation in the Prabhupada Conversation book where Srila Prabhupada was talking to a member of another religious denomination or spiritual denomination on this topic of the varieties of living entities in material existence. And Prabhupada was explaining how this is due to people's previous karma. Karanam guna sangasya. Prabhupada quoted that exact verse, that the difference of auspicious and inauspicious situations, or good and bad, is due to association with the modes of nature. And that creates the next body. The gross material body of the 5 material elements will be given up, but the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and false ego, depending on the consciousness at the time of death, Antakali means the time of death, that will carry on to the next body. That is why in this lifetime one is advised to hear from authorities. to hear from self-realized souls. In whatever condition one may be, if one hears submissively from realized soul, he will get good result. On May 12, 1969 in Ohio, Prabhupada in a lecture described, and the process is very simple. You haven't got to take difficult processes like yoga system or philosophical speculative system. That is not possible in this age. I'm not speaking from my own experience, but I'm taking the experience of big acharyas and big stalwart sages. They say that kalo nastyeva 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 gatiranyata. If you want to realize yourself, if you want to know what is your next life, if you want to know what is God, if you want to know what is your relationship with God, all these things will be revealed to you. This is real knowledge by simply chanting this mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We are not charging anything. It is practical. We're not bluffing you that I shall give you something, secret mantra, and charge you $50. No, it is open for everyone. Please take it. That is our request. We are begging you. Don't spoil your life. Please take this mantra. Chant wherever you like. It has no hard and fast rules you have to follow. Whenever you like, wherever you like, any condition of life, just like we chanted half an hour before, any condition you felt ecstasy. Similarly, you can continue this. Chant this Hare Krishna mantra. It is given to you free. But if you want to know what is this Hare Krishna mantra through philosophy, through knowledge, through logic, we've got volumes of books. Don't think that we are simply sentimentally dancing. So this is very important because there's some kind of misunderstanding, just like on the internet. There's various groups, they do different kind of bhajan, different kind of kirtans. But some of them, not only did they not follow the standard and the instruction of Srila Prabhupada, the current Acharya, but they invent these chants. They invent some mantras. The likelihood that will not produce a very good effect. Why? Not because I say so, because the Padma Purana says so. Sampradaya vihinaye mantraste nishfalamataha. Unless you get your mantra or your songs or your spiritual instruction from a bona fide disciplic succession, it will simply nishfala, useless, no result. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Bo, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Because this is the problem that people concoct things. They make them up based on the activities of the mind. And most people have no knowledge of the subtle body, Rochisha Devi Dasi. They're mostly focused on the gross body, the material body. And this causes a great deal of stress. One of the biggest problems nowadays in human society is mental illness. People are sick in the mind. And what do they do when they go to the doctor? They get prescribed medicines, pharmaceuticals. That's the solution. To take these pharmaceuticals, and the pharmaceutical industry is sinister because it's profit-driven. That's exactly what they want to do, is make people sick and then sell them drugs. Look at recently what happened with this pandemic that was caused by the COVID fiasco, the fake COVID fiasco. And they had all kinds of rules, Yashodanandana Prabhu, that forced governments to comply with. Otherwise, they wouldn't give them the injections. And it was all based on greed. Greed and lust drive the mad illusion of material life. So the pharmaceutical industry, they try to solve problems with drugs, but it won't work. And people are crazier than they have ever been. Because the real point is that you have to understand the nature of the mind, the nature of intelligence, the nature of ego, like we're discussing, the knower of the field of activity. That Krishna is within every living entity as the Paramatma, the Supersoul. And he's guiding all of us to spiritual emancipation if you have an interest in being serious about spiritual life and not concocting. Because people do that. They make things up in their mind and they think they're right. Look at, for example, the Bible. People study the Bible. How many versions of the Bible are there? Well, there's thousands of them. Which Bible do you read? Which Bible do you believe? But there's no answer. They just think, oh, well, I'm reading the Bible. Disciplic succession is very concise and precise. And it comes down in a chain of spiritual masters to us here in the current day. Not concocted or manipulated by other people who are motivated for personal self-aggrandizement. That's what goes on. And the practice of yoga is very serious. And through the practice of yoga, you can become disciplined in your mind. I'm going to read a section, if Rupa Goswami Prabhu could bring it up, from chapter 6, text 18 of the Bhagavad Gita. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. The activities, purport by Srila Prabhupada, the activities of the yogi are distinguished from those of an ordinary person by his characteristic cessation from all kinds of material desires, of which sex is the chief. A perfect yogi is so well disciplined in the activities of the mind that he can no longer be disturbed by any kind of material desire. So steady mind. The perfectional stage can automatically be attained by persons in Krishna consciousness, as is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll move right forward with the translation. King Ambarish first of all engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Then, one after another, he engaged his words in describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, his hands in mopping the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the activities of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the transcendental forms of the Lord, his body in touching the bodies of the devotees, his sense of smell in smelling the scents of the lotus flower offered to the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaf offered at the lotus feet of the Lord, his legs in going to places of pilgrimage and the temple of the Lord, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, his active desires in executing the mission of the Lord, all these transcendental, executing the mission of the Lord. And all these transcendental activities are quite befitting a pure devotee. This transcendental stage may be inexpressible subjectively, by the followers of the impersonal path, but it becomes a very easy and practical for a person in Krishna consciousness, as apparent in the above description of the engagements of Maharaj Ambarish. Unless the mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord by constant remembrance, such transcendental engagements are not practical. In the devotional service of the Lord, therefore, these prescribed duties are called archana, or engaging all of the senses in the service of the Lord. The senses and the mind require engagement. Simple abnegation is not practical. It's artificial. Therefore, people in general, especially those who are not in the renounced order of life, transcendental engagement of the senses and the mind as described above is the perfect process of transcendental achievement, which is called yukta in the Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada created this environment in his society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And all these activities we were taught by him to practice on a daily basis. And in this way, you can control the mind. You can control the senses. Not simply abnegation, but affirmation that you do the right things, not the wrong things. Just like we have a mission. We have a mission to protect Prabhupada's legacy. That's a mission that we're on. And we spend most of our time, or a great part of our time, in preparing and serving that mission with all different types of activity, because the soul is active. Dovetailing the soul, the energy of the living entity in that service helps us to control the mind. Filling it up with devotional activity. That's our business. To always stay active. People are active, no question, because the soul is active. But what are they active in? Are they active in their own personal ambitions? Is that what they are? Or are they engaged in activity directed by the spiritual master through discipline? Just like all of us, we all get up every day, we chant our rounds. Yes, we do. People that don't chant their rounds, they're not serious about spiritual life. And if they don't chant their rounds, when the time of death comes, it will be hard for them to remember Krishna. Yes, it will. Because opportunity and preparation produce success. We talked about that the other day. You have to be prepared. The way you prepare is every day, because you don't know when you're going to leave this body, do you? Like the situation in Mexico with Gopal. I was there in November. We were going down to the juice bar every day. I'd chant my rounds and get our carrot and beet juice. It was quite nice. And there was no indication that he had tremendous cancer. He was afflicted. No indication at all. I used to look at him, I go, look, I'd be observing him. I'm thinking, he doesn't look right. That's the best I could do. I thought, gee, he doesn't seem right. And then when I left, all of a sudden, this disease came. Cancer of the liver, cancer of the lungs, a cancer of the colon, heart trouble, all kinds of things. And then subsequently, I just left there, and he's gone. He's ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So he never knew it was coming. So we don't never know when death may come. Time and tide wait for no man. And so it's very important that we take up seriously, a first step is our japa. 16 rounds a day without fail. Very important. And this was stipulated by Srila Prabhupada for his serious disciples. We have examples of people that claim to be disciples, and Yashoda has told the story many times, but they didn't chant. They never had the appearance of a devotee. And when they came before Prabhupada, he would tell them, "You're not my disciple." Why? Because there's no discipline. Disciple means discipline. If you don't have discipline, it's because you're weak-minded. That's why. And you have to overcome weak-mindedness. We all do. By determination. You have to be determined. Whether, it doesn't matter what field you're in, you have to be determined to develop yourself. But the most important thing is we're in the field of bhakti yoga, and that requires determination. That requires surrender. Yes. How much are you supposed to surrender? Everything. Why? Because when you die, you go bankrupt. That's one thing that's for sure. When death starts to come to you, you start to realize nothing matters because I'm going to lose everything anyway. So people, what they do is they give away everything they're supposed to in the will because it's not going to be theirs. It's all irrelevant. Death, it devours everything. It takes away everything that you have developed in this lifetime. Even if you're a billionaire, how much money do you take with you, Vijaya Pandit, when you leave the body with $1 billion? How much do you take? Zero. But people don't realize that. They don't care. They think, oh, well, I'm going to... And it's interesting to note that when you're going to die, you'll spend any amount of money to survive. Pirangelo, did you know that? I saw it. We had a particular relationship with Gopal when he was prepared to die. And he was spending every day 25,000 pesos a day to survive. A day. Did it make any difference to him? No. Because the most important thing for him was to survive. That's what people do. Even up to the end. And material desire can take care of it, can also take you over. Even if you think that you're in a good position. Prabhupada gives the example of men, old men, up to the last moment, they're thinking, I'll have sex. Oh, I'll die while I'm going to leave my body. I think I'll have sex. That'll make me happy. This is madness. People are insane. I always say that. People get upset. Why would you say that? I'm not saying it because I'm criticizing people. Insanity means you don't know who you are. You don't know the purpose of life. You don't know what's going to happen at the time of death. But you think you know. I'll have sex. I'll spend every amount of money that I have, 25,000 pesos. One day the bill was 150,000 pesos. In the last few weeks, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pesos being spent by him because he was doing everything to try to survive. And that was inevitable. He was going to go. So the best use of our money, the best use of our time is to be focused on the disciplines of bhakti yoga. And this will benefit us for eternity because eternity is standing in front of us, even though we can't see it. Yashodanandana, Prabhu, could you go to the review now of the unauthorized biography of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, also known as the Lilamrita, and read some sections from that book that we're preparing. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we'll proceed with that. We're actually on Lilamrita Review Part 1, Chapter 1, Section 1, text, page number 14. Last week we read about the position of liberated soul. Srila Prabhupada explains in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 16, text 19, being a liberated soul and completely learned, he sees all material varieties as meaningless because their basic principle is nescience. Being in such a position, he sees the material world with a different vision. Then Srila Prabhupada explains in Canto 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 19, text 20, thus the devotees of the Lord are never enchanted by the glare of materialistic life, and they live impartially unattached to the objects of the false, illusory way of life. The Lilamrita speculates that Srila Prabhupada was attached to matter. Quote, in the 88th chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he, Srila Prabhupada, came upon a verse in which Lord Krishna said something that startled him. Yasyaham anugrihami harishi taddanam shanai tato dhanam antyantyaste svajana dukhi dukhitam. When I feel especially mercifully disposed towards someone, I gradually take away all his material possessions. His friends and relatives reject this poverty-stricken and most wretched fellow. Abai shuddered as he read the verse. It seemed to speak directly to him. But what does it mean? Does it mean he thought that Krishna will take away all my money? Was that what was actually happening? Was that why his business plans were failing? And then we will proceed here with the Lilamrita Review, part number 2. Section number 2, did Srila Prabhupada shudder? The Lilamrita speculates that Prabhupada was attached to matter, and it quotes the same last Lilamrita section, Lilamrita Book 1, page 88. Webster's dictionary defines shuddered as to tremor convulsively, to quiver or to shake. The Shastra, however, informs us that the pure devotee only cares for Krishna's happiness, not any material situation for himself. Krishna's happiness is his happiness. Then we have a citation from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Lila, chapter 20, text 52. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that a devotee does not care about his own happiness and distress. He is simply interested in seeing that Krishna is happy. And for that purpose, he engages in various activities. A pure devotee has no way of sensing happiness except by seeing that Krishna is happy in every respect. If Krishna becomes happy by giving him distress, such a devotee accepts that unhappiness as the greatest of all happiness. Srila Prabhupada further explains in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 2, anything sent by God is a blessing for the devotee. Being fully surrendered to Krishna, the pure devotee knows that Krishna will take care of him. He never worries about such things. Srila Prabhupada explains further in Antya Lila. No, let me see here. The pure devotee is fully surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord, and the Lord takes charge of him as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Aham tvam sarva papi bhyo mokshayishyami. Bhagavad Gita 18:66. The Father knows the necessities of the Son and supplies them, and the Supreme Lord knows the necessities of the living entities and supplies them sumptuously. One who is concerned about material benefits from Krishna can be a pious man, but he cannot be a pure devotee. Prabhupada explains in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 10, text number 4. The word artha refers to one who is physically distressed and nartarti refers to one who is in need of money. Unless one is pious, one cannot approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, although a pious man may receive some material benefit, one who is concerned with material benefits cannot be a pure devotee. This was from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 10, text number 4. The verse cited by Lilamrita concerning Krishna taking away the wealth of a devotee who is still attached to possessions in society does not appear to be relevant because it does not apply to Srila Prabhupada. It applies to the imperfectly realized devotee who still has material desires. Any statement by His Divine Grace referring to so-called attachment to family, business, etc., cannot be taken literally. It is simply the expression of humility on the part of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada explains in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 30, text 19, if a devotee is not mature, Krishna will take away all his opulence. This principle is stated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yasyaham manugrihinami harishe taddanam shanaihi. My first mercy is shown to my devotee is to take away all his material opulence. Back in the studio, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Yes, very interesting quotes, by the way, everyone, because this is the proper way to present philosophy. It's not to concoct it, but to refer to Shastra. And this is the same in the legal world. When you try to make a case of law, you quote past cases of law as precedents to determine the innocence or the guilty position of the person on trial. So Prabhupada always quoted Shastra to justify everything that he would speak. And it's very important to understand this principle in hearing this philosophy from bona fide devotees, disciples, not that they just make things up. Nowadays, it's very popular to become a Tony Robbins. You just make things up. There's all kinds of material motivation that they present based on their own mental concoction. And they're confused about the difference between Vani and Vapu, which is fundamental to our presentation here at the classes, that Prabhupada lives in sound. And the Vapu representation of the so-called spiritual authorities is not important. It's actually very dangerous for multiple reasons. We won't discuss it today. But hearing the Vani, this is important because, and sometimes people criticize Prabhupada for some of his purports. They say he just repeats the same thing over and over again, repeats it over and over again. Well, actually, every time you read a purport, it is more relevant to the verse, and it elaborates on that verse, a deeper understanding of the verse as spoken by Krishna. It is actually magic. Every verse, every purport is illuminating, very illuminating. And the repetition of philosophy is important because of the fickle state of the mind. So you could be one moment, you could be all fixed up, and the next moment you could be off in the twilight zone. Eh? That's what happens. Some people may not accept that, but that's the fact. It's like, for example, you come to class and then after you just get up and you go off and you wander out into the world and you're just in the twilight zone again. So constantly hearing, this is a remedy for the disease condition of the conditioned soul. You have to hear it all the time. That's how it works. And this constant repetition of the philosophy and the clarification of the details of the philosophy keeps us motivated on the path of devotional service. Otherwise, we wander away. We go off in the dream world of the illusion of life. So, Vani Vapu, this principle is so important, to always hear the orders of the spiritual master. And this process will liberate us out of the material world. The rest of it, you'll get entangled and you'll be bewildered. We're going to move forward with our discussion. I wanted to call upon Ram Raghava. He has a question from the YouTube that maybe we give an answer to the audience. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Again, to report, there were up to 15 people watching at one time. And one Mataji, Nitya Manjari Dasi, she's asking, do we keep the Paramatma in our spiritual hearts after we go back to Godhead? Or do we only have the Paramatma with us while journeying here in the material world? Material realm.
Yashodanandana, if you could give the answer, please.
What was that?
Go ahead, read it again. Read it again.
Okay. Do we keep the Paramatma in our spiritual hearts after we go back home, back to Godhead? Or do we only have the Paramatma with us while journeying here in the material realm?
I do not have any specific quote from Srila Prabhupada with regard to this question, but we do know when we go back to the spiritual world in our Swarupa, in our relationship with Krishna, we're going to be directly with Krishna. The Paramatma is right in front of us. You're going to be with the Paramatma directly. There is one point before, according to Srila Prabhupada, before one goes back to Godhead, he is transferred to a universe. When somebody is purified and ready to go back to Godhead, he doesn't go directly from this planet back to Goloka. He is transferred to a universe where the pastimes of Krishna are taking place, and then he will be practicing his relationship with Krishna, and then after that, he'll go back to Godhead. I don't have the specific reference in front of me, but it is there in some of Prabhupada's conversations. But as far as I know, when you go to the spiritual world, either Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan, you're directly with Krishna. There's no question. The Paramatma is Krishna. So, when you go back to Godhead, Krishna is there directly. What is that quote here?
Let's see it. Scroll down, please.
This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, verse 18, about the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Paramatma.
Well, read it. Go ahead.
Can you put it down?
Can you just fix it, please?
Scroll it down. By exhibiting his potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead adjusts all these different elements, keeping himself within as the Supersoul and without as time. Purport. Here it is stated that within the heart, the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides as the Supersoul. This situation is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. The Supersoul rests beside the individual soul and acts as a witness. This is also confirmed elsewhere in the Vedic literature. Two birds are sitting on the same tree of the body. One is witnessing and the other is eating the fruits of the tree. This Purusha or Paramatma who resides within the body of the individual soul is described in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 23, as the Upadrashta, witness, and the Anumanta, sanctioning authority. The conditioned soul engages in the happiness and distress of the particular body given him by the arrangement of the external energy of the Supreme Lord. But the Supreme Living Being, or the Paramatma, is different from the conditioned soul. He is described in Bhagavad Gita as Maheshwara, or the Supreme Lord. He's Paramatma, not Jivatma. Paramatma means a super soul who is sitting by the side of the conditioned soul just to sanction his activities. The conditioned soul comes to this material world in order to lord it over material nature. Since one cannot do anything without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, he lives with the Jiva soul as witness and sanction giver. He is also Bhokta. He gives maintenance and sustenance to the conditioned soul. Since the living entity is constitutionally part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is very affectionate to the living entities. Unfortunately, when the living entity is bewildered or illusioned by the external energy, he becomes forgetful of his eternal relationship with the Lord. But as soon as he becomes aware of his constitutional position, he is liberated. The minute independence of the conditioned soul is exhibited by his marginal position. If he likes, he can forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead and comes into the material existence with a false ego to lord it over material nature. But if he likes, he can turn his face to the service of the Lord. The individual living entity is given that independence. His conditional life is ended, and his life becomes successful as soon as he turns his face to the Lord. But by misusing his independence, he enters into material existence. Yet the Lord is so kind that as super soul, he always remains with the conditioned soul. The concern of the Lord is neither to enjoy nor to suffer from the material body. He remains with the jiva simply a sanction giver and witness so that the living entity can receive the results of his activities, good or bad. Outside the body of the conditioned soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains as the time factor. According to the Sankhya system of philosophy, there are 25 elements. The 24 elements already described, plus the time factor, make 25. According to some learned philosopher, the supersoul is included to make a total of 26 elements. So this is a good explanation of the position of the supersoul and the individual living entity. But again, the supersoul is Krishna, and Krishna, Narayana, would be directly there in Vaikuntha and in Goloka Vrindavan. That's my understanding. Hare Krishna.
Yeah,
I hope it helps.
that is really the function of Paramatma, to accompany the conditioned soul in his journey in time in the material world. It's like two birds on the tree. And he's witnessing what we do and trying to help us get out of this state of confusion. So when you go back to Godhead, you're living with Krishna. It's simple. And we'll look at.
I'm
Pardon?
sorry to interrupt.
Go
There's
ahead,
a
please.
comment from Narasimha Prabhu.
Yeah.
This is Narasimha Prabhu in Northern California. Yes, that is correct. Super soul is Kshodakshaya Vishnu. In Goloka, Krishna himself is always present everywhere. So it's confirmed. We have an authority from Cedarville, California, great Vaishnava, Narasimha Prabhu. He's confirmed. Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
good. So, it's a good question. We'll move forward with Dharma Bhavana. Maybe you could say a few comments on today's discussion and readings. Go ahead, Dharma.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Dallas, Texas, sir.
Respectful obeisance to all the Vaishnava devotees. Just wanted to kind of ask a question and also comment on the Leela Amrita, because back in the early 80s, at least most devotees, myself, we were just automatically following the narrative to respect the older devotees, those who were institutional or writing the books like the Leela Amrita. And even though the many statements in there are very faulty, in the beginning, I had no idea they were faulty because you just accepted it. And then after some time, like 15 years ago, I started reading the Leela Amrita review on KrishnaConsciousNessMovement.com. And I came to understand that, these things need to be looked at very carefully, that the narrative back then was to make Prabhupada look either directly or indirectly like an ordinary person.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of a narrative that was going on. So it's maybe hard for somebody to understand, but a lot of things fitted into that narrative. But many ordinary devotees were just taught to follow and had no idea that these things were going on. For me, I'm a slow person, so it took me many, many decades and years to even begin to figure these things out. So I just thought that I'd mention that one thing about the Lila Amrita. And to me, it was very interesting to read Prabhupada's activities. What happened when he first came to America? What was his life like in India? A little bit of background. And there was kind of a tendency to our narrative to promote certain devotees to be perfect and to make Prabhupada look kind of ordinary. So that's just kind of the background that I have. Thank you, Haribo.
It's interesting that you made that comment, because all of us are, back then, were really ready to accept what people said, especially if they claimed to be, so-called leaders in the movement, because the position was, well, we were all servants. And a lot of times people would do things that we would ignore and think, oh, he couldn't have done that. For example, Keith Ham came to Toronto. What? You're laughing.
That's
Keith
funny.
Ham he came to Toronto. And we had a place up in the tower that was reserved for guests. And it was actually Prabhupada's room, and I gave him that room to stay in, and he was sleeping with Hayagriva's son in his own sleeping bag, both of them. And the kid was like 8 or 9 years old. And I thought, now, actually, we know that this person turned out to be, what he is. If you can look it up on the internet. And I somehow or other didn't do anything. I just thought, oh, there's no way that he could do something like that. But he was. For example, when he came to Toronto as well, this is one of these fake people. He brought a German Shepherd dog with him into the temple room. And he was walking around with a dog as a guard. And did I do anything, Pure Angelo? I thought, oh, well, I guess it's Keith Ham. He's got to be, somebody special. Naivety, stupidity. Of course, now we're much more aware of the fact that this whole thing was a fiasco. But sometimes we fall into this confusion because we're sincere. We want to follow. We don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to say anything. We don't want to speak up when it's wrong because we're thinking, oh, maybe I'm wrong. No, we're not wrong. And the principles that we explain about Vani and Vapu and the position of Prabhupada is still living and sound, and that he is the bona fide guru and we should follow him. These are the principles that we're going to explain to others, irrespective, Vijaya Pandit, of how they criticize us. I know you're undergoing a lot of criticism in Italy by these deviants, and it's unfortunate. But their karma is awaiting them in due course. Okay, we're moving to the end of the program. I see we have a friend, Neela Sharma. He has his hand up. Prabhu, go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Prabhupada. It is an interesting question which was posed, and the Paramatma's role as Upadrashta, or somebody who is a witnesser, is always witnessing us, even in the spiritual realm. And this is what I found in the AI, and I would love to know if others would kind of agree with this, is this is the part which came about, is that in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, the Paramatma, the Super Soul, is understood to be present within the hearts of all living beings, including in the spiritual world. And Srila Prabhupada's teachings emphasizes the importance of understanding and connecting with the Paramatma. And the first one, the Paramatma's presence, I'm going to read this part, that the Paramatma is considered the Super Soul as a part of the Supreme Lord, residing within the heart of every living entity. This presence extends to the spiritual world as well, where liberated souls resides. And we read this particular purport, which is the 326:18, which kind of emphasizes that aspect. So it was a very interesting question which was put forth. And the second part, which I have a question for Yashodanand Prabhu, that he talks about Kirtan standards. And there is a book by one of the so-called gurus, which talks about Kirtan standards. And there is no official review from the other side or the opposing side. I don't know if you are aware of this, Prabhuji, and whether this could be a what you call um, Srila Prabhupada's Kirtan standards by Jai Advaita Swami. So I would like to know what are your thoughts, Prabhuji?
Well, I've not read his book, so I can't comment on his statements. We do know what Kirtan standards are from Prabhupada. We do know that Prabhupada told us not to manufacture or concoct Kirtans. We do know that in Prabhupada's manifested presence, those of us who were there, that Prabhupada several times sent his personal secretary or servants to stop the Kirtan and told them not to do that, or to certain things that they did, and just to chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya or Hare Krishna mantra. We have to remember that in Bengal, there's a lot of different groups, a lot of different Sahajya groups doing Kirtan still today. And it's not that everything that they do is authorized by the Acharya. There's a lot of sentimental, emotional type Kirtans that are not bona fide. And also the Kirtan and the mantras that are given. Because it's like, just like I've seen on the internet, there's some people going on Sankirtan and singing some songs, and I'm thinking, where are these songs from? Because we do know that they're not from Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada did not give some of these wording. So where do the people get these manufactured songs or sentimental songs? Now, again, the one point about Vaishnava philosophy, you're not supposed to criticize other Vaishnavas. This is well understood. But at the same time, one cannot lose his discrimination or his intelligence to accept everything blindly. One has to use his God-given intelligence to differentiate, to discriminate, to understand what's bona fide, what's not bona fide. And the way to understand that is from the statements and the example of Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas. Now, again, I don't know what Jai Advaita Swami said, but given his reputation with the changes that he's made to the Bhagavad Gita and other books, I would not want to comment on his books or anything that he said. Because what we see and practically experience with many of these kirtans, it's not bona fide. And a lot of it stems, in my estimation, from that original disobedience from Srila Prabhupada in 1978, when they totally changed everything that Prabhupada had given. Prabhupada had given the temple standard, the kirtan standard, the deity worship standard, the standard of how to offer the bhoga. And within 1 or 2 months of the Mayapur festival, everything was changed. Everything is changed. Why? Because they invented this idea that they had been supposedly or allegedly appointed as Prabhupada's successors by some mysterious, barely audible audio tape. So it's like everything was changed, all the standards Prabhupada gave, and it's still 46, 47 years later, it's never been completely corrected. So this is the problem. There is a little deviation, then another deviation, another deviation to correct. So it's best just to stick to the standards that Prabhupada has given. That's all I can say in this regard. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, there's a new way, new thing which goes on, especially right now, is they chant this Jai Guru Deva, in these kirtans now. Is this something which was sanctioned by Prabhupada also?
Well, during Prabhupada's presence, many times devotee would chant at the end of the kirtan, Haribol, Haribol. Several times they would chant Jai Prabhupada, sometimes Jai Gurudev, but Prabhupada did not encourage. Just like there was a conversation with Prabhupada talks about another group in Gujarat, some quasi-Vaishnava Sampradaya, and Prabhupada said, I do not advise my disciple chant Bhaktivedanta, Bhaktivedanta. There was a conversation like that. So Prabhupada, the devotees did it out of affection for his divine grace. Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada accepted it, but generally Prabhupada encouraged devotees chant Namo Vishnu Padaya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Hare Krishna mantra. That's the standard that he gave. Now, as far as this Gurudev, there is a letter Prabhupada wrote to one of his followers, how the Mayavadis do not give the name of their gurus. Prabhupada said, what is this giving the name? The name should be given. The actual name of the spiritual master should be given when we glorify him, because we are not impersonalists. I'm sorry to divert here a little bit. There has been a comment here, a comment from Puranjan. He says, I believe Srila Prabhupada said that we have the Paramatma when we are here, but when we go back, we see Krishna direct. That's correct. That's what Prabhupada said. Narasimha Prabhu again said, yes, that is correct. Super soul is Kiriksho Dakshaya Vishnu, and Goloka Krishna himself is always present everywhere. So, very good point. Then there's another quote, very interesting, from Narasimha Prabhu. The Paramat manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world. So it's important to understand the Paramatma is a feature here that's an expansion of Vishnu in the heart of all living entities. So when we go back and that relationship to Krishna is established, the Paramatma is there right in front of us. So there's no separate Paramatma in the spiritual world. It says here, the Paramatma manifestation is also a temporary, all-pervasive aspect of the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. The Paramatma manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world. Therefore, the factual absolute truth is the supreme personality of Godhead Krishna. He is the complete energetic person, and he possesses different, separated, and eternal energies. I hope that helps.
Oh,
Hare
yeah,
Krishna.
that's very
Hare
good.
Krishna.
Bhumir up on a low bayou, kamono budhir evacha hankara itya me bina prakritir astada. So that is in knowledge of the absolute, where the separated material energies are described. So everyone, you can go to that verse, and it's very clear in the purport that the Paramatma manifestation is also a temporary, all-pervasive aspect of Kashiro Dakshai Vishnu. The Paramatma manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world. So there it's pretty clear exactly, and a very interesting question. And thank you everyone for attending today's program. And we'll be back tomorrow for Srimad Bhagavatam class, reading from the Delhi Bhagavatams, which are the original Bhagavatams that were not edited. Prabhupada liked that the books became edited, actually, in a certain way, and he reviewed the editing process and sanctioned it. But at the same time, these original books are quite engaging when you read them, when you study them. They're also very revealing, so it's a beautiful thing. And they're collector's items. They're really collector's items, and we hope that everybody in the future gets a set of these original Delhi Bhagavatams and enjoys reading them as well. So we're going to move forward. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of the program. And more questions tomorrow. If you have a good question, bring it up on the chat, either on the YouTube channel or just in the straight Zoom call. We'll try to address it as we focus on our philosophy of the Vani incarnation coming from Srila Prabhupada and all the answers to these questions coming from him, not from the small-minded people who think they became or are becoming Uttama Adhikari Diksha Gurus. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and the Sankirtan movement. We'll move ahead with the Kirtan, 2 minutes and 54 seconds by Srila Prabhupada, and then we'll have our closing remarks. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnava devotees. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances. We all offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Thanks everyone for participating in this lively discussion and reading. Thanks Vishwakarma Prabhu back in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Ruchisa Devi Mataji in Montreal, Canada, dans les Laurentides. And we have Michael Dillon, Yuba City, California. And then we have Krishna Kata in San Diego, California, Alpine, California, Ram Raghava in Georgia, Brighton, Georgia. You kindly offer our respectful obeisances to your mother and father, Ram Raghava Prabhu. Neil Shamar Prabhu in Florida. Das Avatar, still don't know what city you're in, but it is in Australia somewhere, very active. Hare Krishna. Are you in Cairns or where are you? What is the city where you are?
Adelaide.
Adelaide, okay, Adelaide, Australia. Bhakta Ron Singh in Oroville, California. Narasimha Prabhu in Northern California, Cedarville. Vijay Pandit in Twinehart, California, right here. Dharma Bhavana in Texas. And let Rupa Goswami Prabhu, not to forget, in Mumbai, India, very active in the production, and everybody else participating. We invite everybody to come back tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock a.m. from Srimad Bhagavatam reading and discussion, and we will continue these very interesting discussion of various topics. And we will kind of stay with us for a few minutes. We will have a very interesting kirtan with devotees from Jamaica. Hare Krishna, all glories to His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.